The day Adam and I met, the sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the city. I was seated at a corner table in a cozy coffee shop, engrossed in a book, when a tall, charming man with a warm smile approached me. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, motioning to the empty chair across from me. I looked up, meeting his gaze, and couldn't help but smile back. "No, it's all yours," I replied, feeling a flutter of excitement in my chest. He introduced himself as Danielle, and we struck up a conversation that felt like reconnecting with an old friend. Our laughter echoed through the coffee shop as we discovered shared interests and aspirations. Time flew by, and before we knew it, the sun was setting. As we reluctantly said our goodbyes, Danielle hesitated for a moment before mustering the courage to ask, "Would you like to go out with me sometime?" The question caught me off guard, but the spark between us was undeniable. "I'd love to," I said, my heart racing with anticipation. Our first date was magical, filled with endless conversations, stolen glances, and the feeling that fate had brought us together. From that moment on, we became inseparable. Our love blossomed, and I fell head over heels for this wonderful man named Danielle, who had filled my life with joy and purpose. As our relationship deepened, Danielle's love for me became evident in the little things he did. He'd surprise me with flowers, cook my favorite meals, and leave sweet notes for me to find throughout the day. I knew I had found the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. When the time was right, Danielle proposed in the most romantic way possible. Under a starry night sky, with a heartwarming speech that made my eyes well up with tears of happiness. "I can't imagine my life without you, Sophia," he said, holding my hands tightly. "Will you marry me?" Without any hesitation, I whispered, "Yes, Danielle. Yes, with all my heart." Our wedding day arrived, and it was a day I'd cherish forever. Surrounded by the love of our friends and family, we exchanged vows, promising to stand by each other through thick and thin. My heart swelled with love as I glanced at Danielle, who looked dashing in his suit, and I felt a rush of gratitude for the life we were about to embark on together. After the ceremony, Danielle's parents, Richard and Karen, approached me with wide smiles. "Welcome to the family, Sophia," Karen said, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Thank you," I replied, feeling overwhelmed by their love and acceptance. Richard patted Danielle on the back. "You found yourself a keeper, son. Take good care of her." Danielle nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. "I will, Dad, I promise." And so, our new beginning as husband and wife commenced. Little did I know that this journey would lead us through both joy and pain, testing the strength of our love in ways I couldn't have imagined. But on that day, all I knew was that I was marrying the man of my dreams, and nothing else mattered. The days leading up to our wedding were a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation. As the big day approached, I found myself feeling a mix of nervousness and elation. I was about to marry the man I loved, and the thought filled me with both joy and butterflies. Danielle and I had decided on a rustic outdoor wedding, surrounded by nature's beauty. We chose a picturesque garden venue with blooming flowers and tall trees, creating a magical atmosphere for our special day. As the guests arrived, the air buzzed with laughter and chatter, and the aroma of freshly cut flowers filled the air. I stood in front of a mirror, my heart pounding in my chest as I slipped into my wedding dress. It was a breathtaking gown, adorned with delicate lace and a flowing train that cascaded gracefully behind me. My mother and bridesmaids watched with teary eyes as they helped me put on the final touches. "Oh, Sophia, you look absolutely stunning," my mother said, her voice choked with emotion. I turned to face them, my heart brimming with happiness. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you all for being here with me on this day." With joyful anticipation, I walked down the aisle, my eyes locked on Danielle, who stood at the altar looking dashing in his tailored suit. His eyes welled up as he saw me approach, and I could see the love in his gaze. My heart felt like it could burst with love for this man who had become my everything. As we exchanged vows, the world around us seemed to fade away, and it felt like we were the only two people in the universe. The promises we made to each other were heartfelt and sincere, and I knew in that moment that we were embarking on a journey of a lifetime. The ceremony was followed by a joyous celebration, where laughter and happiness filled the air. We danced, ate delicious food, and shared heartfelt toasts with our loved ones. Danielle's parents, Richard and Karen, approached us, beaming with pride and love. "Congratulations, you two. It was a beautiful ceremony," Karen said, pulling me into a warm hug. "Thank you so much for being here to share this day with us," I replied, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. As the evening turned to night, we lit up lanterns that floated gently into the sky, symbolizing our hopes and dreams taking flight together. Surrounded by the warmth of our loved ones, I felt a sense of contentment and peace, knowing that I had found my soulmate and that our love was bound to endure any challenge that life might throw our way. And so our perfect wedding day came to an end, but it was only the beginning of a beautiful journey as husband and wife. Little did I know that the true test of our love and resilience lay ahead, but in that moment, I was filled with hope and happiness, ready to face the world hand in hand with Danielle. After the enchanting wedding day, Danielle and I set out to build our life together in the beautiful house he had purchased. The excitement of starting this new chapter filled our hearts as we moved into our new home. As we unpacked boxes and arranged furniture, the house began to feel like a place where our love could truly blossom. One sunny afternoon, as we were organizing the kitchen, Danielle wrapped his arms around me from behind and placed a gentle kiss on my cheek. "I can't believe this is our home now," he said, his voice filled with happiness. I turned to face him, a wide smile spreading across my face. "Me neither. It's perfect, just like you," I replied, giving him a loving peck on the lips. As the days turned into weeks, we settled into a comfortable routine. With Danielle's successful career, he assured me that I didn't need to work and could focus on making our home a warm and inviting space. I relished the opportunity to do so, and together with Danielle's parents, Richard and Karen, we turned the house into a cozy sanctuary. "Thank you both for helping us make this house a home," I said one evening, as we all sat together in the living room, enjoying the warmth of a crackling fireplace. Richard smiled warmly at me. "It's our pleasure. Sophia, you're family now, and we're thrilled to have you here with us." Karine nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. We couldn't have asked for a better daughter-in-law." Tears welled up in my eyes as I felt overwhelmed by their kindness. "I'm so grateful to have you both in my life," I said, my voice slightly shaky with emotion. As time passed, our bond grew stronger, and I began to feel like the luckiest woman in the world. I cherished the moments we spent together as a family, whether it was sharing meals, going for walks in the nearby park, or simply sitting around the dining table, chatting and laughing. However, there were moments when I noticed a change in Danielle's behavior. He started coming home late from work, often looking tired and distant. I tried to give him space, assuming it was just work stress, but as the weeks went by, his mood swings became more frequent. One evening, as we were having dinner, I gently broached the subject. "Danielle, is everything all right? You seem a bit distant lately," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just work, Sophia. There's a lot of pressure and it's taking a toll on me." "Maybe you should consider talking to someone about it," I suggested, concerned for his well-being. "It's fine, really," he replied, avoiding eye contact. As the days turned into weeks, Danielle's behavior became increasingly erratic. He would snap at me over minor things, and his temper would flare up unexpectedly. I felt confused and hurt, wondering what had caused this sudden change in the man I loved. One evening, after yet another argument, I decided to confide in Richard and Karen about the situation. Sitting together in the living room, I shared my concerns, tears streaming down my cheeks. Karen reached out and took my hand in hers. "Oh, sweetheart, we've noticed it too. We thought it might pass, but it seems to be getting worse." Richard nodded, his expression grave. "We'll talk to him, Sophia. He needs to understand how his behavior is affecting you." I felt grateful for their support and comfort, knowing that they had my back. Little did I know that the storm brewing in our lives was about to reveal its full force, and the true test of our family strength was yet to come. As the days passed, the signs of trouble in our once blissful home became harder to ignore. Danielle's late nights at work continued, and he grew increasingly distant from me and his parents. The warmth and laughter that had once filled our home seemed to dissipate, leaving behind an uneasy atmosphere. One evening, as I prepared dinner in the kitchen, Daniel came home later than usual, his face etched with weariness. I greeted him with a smile, hoping to brighten his mood. "Hey, you're home. Dinner will be ready soon," I said, trying to sound cheerful. He barely acknowledged me, walking past with a mumbled, "Yeah, whatever," feeling hurt by his indifference. I decided to address the issue. "Danielle, we need to talk. Your behavior has been changing, and it's affecting our relationship." He turned to me, his eyes flashing with frustration. "Can't you see that work is stressful? I don't need you nagging me." "I'm not nagging. I'm just worried about you," I replied, my voice tinged with sadness. "We used to be so close, and now it feels like you're shutting me out." Daniel's face softened for a moment, but then he averted his gaze. "I just need some space. Sophia." "This is a tough time for me." Feeling helpless, I nodded and said, "All right, but remember that I'm here for you if you need to talk." As the weeks went by, Danielle's mood swings became more frequent and unpredictable. One day, he came home in a rage, slamming doors and yelling. I tried to approach him gently, but my efforts only seemed to fuel his anger. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" he shouted, his face contorted with anger. "You're suffocating me." Tears welled up in my eyes as I stepped back, hurt by his words. "I love you, Danielle. I just want to help." He shook his head, storming off to his room without another word. I stood there feeling lost and bewildered, not knowing how to reach the man I loved. I decided to confide in Richard and Karen once again, seeking their advice and support. "Something is seriously wrong, and I don't know how to fix it," I admitted tearfully to them one evening. Richard placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We've noticed it too. Sophia, it's not like him to behave this way." Karen nodded in agreement. "We'll talk to him again, try to find out what's going on." "I just want my husband back," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. The concern in their eyes mirrored my own, and together we vowed to find a way to help Daniel through whatever challenges he was facing. But little did we know that our efforts would soon lead us down a path filled with unexpected twists and revelations, putting our family's unity to the test in ways we couldn't have imagined. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel's behavior continued to spiral out of control, and my concern for him grew with each passing day. He seemed distant, agitated, and often came home late, giving me little to no explanation for his actions. Our once loving and open communication had been replaced by walls of silence and anger. One evening, after another tense argument, I found myself sitting alone in our bedroom, tears streaming down my cheeks. I felt a deep sense of sadness and desperation, not knowing how to reach the man I loved. It was as if he had become a stranger, and I was losing the connection we once had. Feeling lost and unsure of what else to do, I turned to Richard and Karen for guidance. They had been a source of strength throughout our marriage, and I hoped they could shed some light on Daniel's behavior. "He won't talk to me, and I don't know how to help him," I confessed to them, my voice trembling with emotion. Karen put her arm around my shoulders, offering comfort. We've tried talking to him as well, but he's shutting us out too. Richard nodded in agreement. I don't know what's going on with him, but we can't force him to open up. He has to be willing to talk. But what if he doesn't? I asked, fear gnawing at my heart. We'll keep trying, Sophia. We won't give up on him, Karen reassured me with a determined look in her eyes. As the days went by, I felt increasingly isolated and alone. I yearned for the man I fell in love with, the one who made me laugh and feel cherished, but all that seemed like a distant memory now. I longed to understand what had changed, what had caused this painful rift between us. One evening, I mustered up the courage to approach Danielle once again. As he came home, I greeted him with a hesitant smile. Danielle, can we talk? He glanced at me briefly before turning away. I'm not in the mood for talking, Sophia. Tears welled up in my eyes as I said, please, just tell me what's wrong. We can work through this together. He sighed impatiently. There's nothing to talk about. I have a lot on my mind, okay? I love you, Danielle, and I want to help. I pleaded, my heart breaking with each rejection. His face hardened and he snapped, You don't understand anything. Just leave me alone. Feeling defeated, I retreated to our bedroom where I cried silently, praying for a way to bridge the widening gap between us. That night, as I lay awake, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong with Danielle. I realized that I couldn't continue like this, living in a home where love and understanding had been replaced by tension and anger. Something had to change, and I knew that I couldn't do it alone. The next morning, I mustered up the courage to make a difficult decision. I needed to share my concerns with Richard and Karen, hoping that together we could find a way to help Danielle before it was too late. Our family's happiness depended on it, and I was willing to fight for us, even if it meant facing uncomfortable truths and making tough choices. The tension in our home continued to escalate, and the feeling of unease weighed heavily on all of us. Richard, Karen, and I had tried to talk to Danielle about his behavior, but he remained closed off and defensive. I knew that something was seriously wrong, and I couldn't stand by idly while our family fell apart. One day, I came home from running errands to find Danielle gone, leaving behind an empty house filled with a deafening silence. The worry in my heart intensified, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was slipping further away from us. Unable to bear the loneliness of the house, I decided to visit Richard and Karen for support. As I approached their doorstep, I noticed a glimmer of hope in their eyes. They had been grappling with the same concerns, and we were all desperate to find a solution. I don't know what to do anymore, I said, tears streaming down my face. I feel like he's slipping away, and I can't reach him. Richard hugged me tightly, his voice filled with concern. We won't give up, Sophia. We'll find a way to help him. Karen nodded in agreement. We need to stay strong as a family. Danielle needs us now more than ever. As we discussed possible approaches to help Danielle, I recalled an incident from a few weeks ago. I had accidentally left behind a necklace, a sentimental gift from my grandmother, in our old bedroom when I moved out. It held immense sentimental value to me, and I couldn't bear to lose it. With determination, I decided to retrieve the necklace from our old house, hoping it might serve as a reason to have a conversation with Danielle. Maybe, just maybe, it would be the key to unlocking the mystery behind his troubled behavior. As I arrived at the old house, memories flooded my mind, and my heart ached for the love and happiness we once shared here. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the door, but there was no response. With a heavy heart, I used the spare key I had kept for emergencies and carefully opened the door. The sight that greeted me inside was haunting. The house was in disarray, and a strange, unpleasant odor lingered in the air. My heart sank as I stepped further inside, calling out Danielle's name, but there was no reply. Finally, I reached our old bedroom, and my breath caught in my throat. There, lying on the floor, was Danielle, unconscious. Panic surged through me as I rushed to his side, checking his pulse to make sure he was still alive. "Danny, wake up. Please wake up," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. To my horror, I noticed bags with unclear contents scattered around him. My mind raced with fear and suspicion, and I knew I had to act quickly to get him help. As I dialed emergency services, I heard a weak groan from Danielle, and my heart filled with relief. A few agonizing minutes later, the paramedics arrived and rushed Danielle to the hospital. I couldn't bear the thought of losing him, and as I sat in the waiting room with Richard and Karen, I felt a mix of fear, anger, and determination. I needed to know what had led him to this point, and I was willing to do whatever it took to get him the help he needed. As the doctors tended to him, we were approached by a police officer who asked us some questions about Danielle's behavior and recent activities. The mention of the mysterious bags in the room sent shivers down my spine, and I knew that there was something much darker and dangerous at play. With a heavy heart, I made a decision that would change everything. It was time to confront the painful truth and seek justice, not just for our family, but for the man I once knew and loved. The revelation of the mysterious bags and the disturbing odor in our old house left me shaken to the core. Danielle's unconscious state was a wake-up call, and I knew that I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. It was time to seek justice and get him the help he desperately needed. As I sat in the hospital waiting room with Richard and Corinne, my mind raced with questions and uncertainty. I had reported the situation to the police, but I feared what they might find in our old house. The thought of Danielle involved in something dangerous and illegal was almost too much to bear. Finally, the hospital staff updated us on Danielle's condition. He was stable, but they informed us that he had ingested dangerous substances and that he would need intensive medical care. A wave of guilt washed over me as I thought about how long he had been struggling without anyone noticing. A police officer approached us, offering some information they had discovered in our old house. "We found drugs in the bags you mentioned," he said gravely. "It appears your husband was involved in illegal activities." My heart sank at the confirmation of my worst fears. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "We'll be conducting a thorough investigation," the officer replied. "Your cooperation will be crucial in helping us understand the full extent of the situation." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a determination to ensure that justice was served. "I want to help in any way I can," I said firmly. Karen squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with concern. "We're here for you, Sophia. We'll face this together." Richard added, "We won't let Danielle go through this alone. We'll support him through whatever comes next." In the following days, the police conducted their investigation, and the truth about Danielle's involvement in drug possession became apparent. The weight of it all was overwhelming, but I knew that I had to stay strong for him. We couldn't let this tear our family apart. As the trial approached, I struggled with conflicting emotions. I loved Danielle deeply, but I couldn't ignore the hurt he had caused with his reckless choices. I knew that he needed help, but I also knew that consequences were necessary for his actions. When the trial began, I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding in my chest. Seeing Danielle in handcuffs was a painful sight, but it was a reality that we had to face. The evidence against him was undeniable, and the truth was finally laid bare. During the trial, I was called as a witness to testify about his behavior and the changes I had noticed. It was one of the hardest things I had ever done, but I knew that it was essential to help him face the consequences of his actions and get the help he needed. The verdict came, and Danielle was sentenced to a year in prison for drug possession. As painful as it was to see him behind bars, I knew that this was a wake-up call for him, a chance to confront his demons and seek a path to recovery. In the following months, our lives changed drastically. With Danielle in prison, Richard, Karen, and I formed an even tighter bond as we supported each other through the emotional turmoil. We attended counseling sessions together, seeking healing and understanding as a family. As difficult as the journey had been, I found a newfound strength within myself. I had faced the darkest moments of our marriage head on, and I had stood up for justice, not just for myself, but for the man I had once loved, the man who needed help.